That's really embarrassing. So yeah, that illustrates your point. The
Yeah,
most
yeah.
qualified people in the field. Maybe it hurts to be qualified because the more you're qualified, the more data you leave out.
Hey everyone, it's Abdu Murray, and I'm here with another short episode of Coulda, Shoulda, Woulda. It's a little show we have on our channel where we interview people, and I will often give you a story of a time when I coulda, shoulda, or woulda done something differently in an evangelistic encounter, having thought about it now. And the whole point of this is to say, look, you don't need to be a professional apologist. You don't need to be the kind of person who does this for a living. You don't need to be the kind of person with a YouTube channel to engage in a difficult evangelistic encounters. You can be you, and God has placed you in those particular instances. So no, you don't need to have a pocket Abdu Murray or a pocket William Lane Craig or a pocket Gary Habermas to be able to witness to people on tough questions. The Lord has given them you, and if you just go through the encounters on your own in your head and say, okay, I would have said this differently. I want to encourage you to go ahead and do that. I've done it plenty of times, and I'm going to be giving you examples over the time. But I'm joined by Gary Habermas. He is a distinguished research professor at Liberty University. He's written 45 books, a lot to do with the resurrection. Many of you will know who he is. And I'm going to ask Gary to reflect on something looking back, you coulda, shoulda, or woulda said differently. Do you have this phenomenon happen to you? And give me just a short story or a short instance of when that's happened to you.
Yeah, I've had what I would call both kinds. Number one, where I'm talking to somebody, and I wished I'd made a point while they were there, but they walked away, and I wished I'd said it. Now, often, if I know the person well, I'll follow it up in an email, and I'll say, you know what, didn't have enough time, but while you or I said such and such, I thought of something, and I'll keep it going in an email. I'll follow up. But where I have these the most is in writing. And well, the best thing I can tell you is that I'm doing this big magnum opus, thousands and thousands of, pages on the resurrection, 4 large volumes, and I'm going back and editing volume 2 right now. And the crazy thing is, I will read a chapter that's not out yet, but I read a chapter that I did maybe, let's say, 5 years ago, and I'll sit there and I'll say, I cannot believe I left this argument out. And of course, I'm editing it, so I add it. But here's my fear. Um, I'll send it in, and when the book comes out and I'm holding the book in my hand, I'll say, well, I had these first 4 refutations, and then on my second reread, I made 5 and 6, but man, I'm thinking about 7 and 8 right now, and I can't believe I let it go without putting them in there. That happens all the time for me, so much so that I am
Yeah.
embarrassed at myself for not including things that if I were giving a lecture, I would put this in all the time. But when I'm doing the writing, which Abdu is really strange, because when you're doing the writing, you think about it slowly. No one's rushing you. You're not jumping on a bus. You're just standing there talking. And it's one thing to forget it then, but when you're writing it and you have time to go through it, and months later you think, this is silly, I should have said XYZ, that's really embarrassing. So yeah, that illustrates your point. The
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
qualified people in the field, maybe it hurts to be qualified because the more you're qualified, the more data you leave out. That's a thought for you.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, I resonate with what Gary said. I've had plenty of encounters and engagements, both public and private, where I've walked away from a conversation thinking, man, this is the question, and I answered this one area here, but I left out the most important bit. How could I have done that? And I've often regretted it even more because they've walked away, and now that we're no longer on the same plane together, and I'm never going to see that person again. Does that mean that we shouldn't continue on just because Gary has had instances where he's left something out where he wishes he would have included it? He shouldn't keep writing. No, it actually means the opposite. It means you got to keep doing it. So I want to encourage you, ladies and gentlemen, if someone like Gary Habermas, who has forgotten more about the resurrection than any of us will ever learn, can have those instances where he wishes he would have said something additional, then that means that all of us will fall victim to the same exact kind of phenomenon. But we press on. He presses on. We press on. There are people who need to hear the truth and the arguments. So rehash your arguments. Rehash what you've done before, and ask yourself, I coulda, shoulda, or woulda done something differently had I had the chance. And maybe next time you will do something different. So until next time, thanks, Gary, for joining us for Coulda, Shoulda, Woulda. It's been a real pleasure to have you on, even ever so briefly. Until next time, friends, I'm Abdu Murray. This has been Coulda, Shoulda, Woulda.